Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined as always by Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we've got play props here for you guys on a Monday night in the NBA, an 8-game slate to choose from. We've also got a couple game videos up for you, including that Nuggets and 76ers matchup in Denver. So check those out by liking and subscribing to that page. Also head to thelines.com and check out all the great written content we're putting up there, including these player props for you guys. And we have the odds finder tool up there as well. Nate and I are using that each and every day to make sure we're getting the best odds available to us from all these bets we're getting in the NBA this season. Nate, let's jump right into your first NBA player prop for tonight, getting right into this matchup with the Sixers and the Nuggets.
Yeah, it's the thing we feel most confident about in this matchup is that Joel Embiid is going to be going balls to the wall to try to avoid losing and to try to avoid losing another MVP because he lost a March game that mattered a lot. And you could almost see it the way they kind of let go of the rope in the fourth quarter against Phoenix, that they're really preparing for this game. The Sixers are. Embiid had 28 points in 32 minutes there. Of course, last time he faced Joker, it was a much bigger performance, 47 and 18 on a 47% usage rate, scored 22 paint points and 30 points total in under 10 minutes with Jokic defending him. I don't know what the Nuggets can do about that other than like play Thomas Bryant alongside Joker for a while. Like, he's got to try to guard Embiid and he can't do it. I mean, nobody can do it, but this is like exactly how you poke holes in Jokic's case, is just prove that whatever team defensive rating metrics are out there showing he's above average defender, he's below average when you put him in the action or when you put him on a guy who, you ask him to stop. And on the other end, Embiid is a stopper as well. I mean, 3 steals and 2 blocks or vice versa in the last matchup. I haven't seen the steal block prop yet, but I would probably attack that at 2.5 or 3.5. Points is really high, 34.5, but James Harden might not play. Or if he plays, like, either way, you spin it as a positive for Embiid. I mean, he's setting him up, but in his last 5 without Harden, he has a 40% usage rate, and that includes a half a game against Chicago where they were blowing him out and just sat. So I think 35 points is completely reasonable. I would look at the stocks when that comes up and even think about first field goal plus 300 for Embiid because, why not? He's when you have a 40% usage rate plus, then there's a very good odds that the first play is going through you. And that, he's going to be scoring a ton. That's one concern about the Sixers is that I don't know who else is scoring if Harden's not at full strength, but they will just continue to feed Embiid.
Well, first of all, I like the first field goal. I think Embiid's going to be so competitive from the jump that he's going to win the tip, and that gives you a better shot at the first field goal. I think that's how competitive he is with Joker right now, and with anybody that could be a threat to him actually winning an MVP. The thing that is interesting about this is I actually like him to do better if Harden plays. I do prefer Embiid's ability to score with Harden. That usage rate in that last game where he scored 22 in the paint with 47 points, 47.5% usage. That came from Harden had 13 assists in that game, right? And that was a huge part of things. I think he's already deferred to Embiid all season in a way that he's not really cutting into it, and he helps Embiid more than Tyrese Maxey, whose style of play is a little bit more predicated on go, and his assists often come off of a drive and kick way more than just having incredible court vision like James Harden does and being one of the best passers of our generation, if we're being honest. And that I think is something that Embiid would actually be helped out by. Plus, points are going to be at more of a premium if Harden is playing. Well, not even at a premium, they're going to be more available if Harden is playing in this game, and that'll only help Embiid. So I do hope he does, but I'm not scared of an Embiid prop no matter what in this one. I would be more surprised if he doesn't get those 35 points, even at that ridiculously high total. So we'll see how that goes. But the plus 300 first field goal is worth maybe a little bit of a sprinkle, like a half unit or something, to see if you feel pretty good about it. But I'm going to move on to a game that one team is definitely going to be trying, and I think we can assume one team will not. And that is the Pelicans taking on the Trailblazers. And I'm taking a Pelican here in Trey Murphy. 15.5 points. It's minus 119 on FanDuel for that. That Those are the best odds I could get. The 3.5 threes for Trey is also good if you want plus 135 for that on DraftKings. Plus odds for him to make 4. He's averaging 4.6 threes made in his last 10 games, and it's a little bit of a fish feel to it, to be honest. I think Mo might accuse me of such things if he were here with us right now at 15.5 points for the kid who, we've been seeing him get 41-point games here and there or whatever, in a way that maybe it's a little bit of recency bias, but I think there's stuff to back it up for him. And I think part of that is the Pellies are going to play him no matter what. I mean, in his last 10, he's averaging 20.5 a game, 53% from the field and 50% from deep. And that's on 9.5 attempts that he's making 4.5 of them, right? To shoot about 50% from deep. He's only had an 18% usage rate in those last 10, which I would prefer to be higher before I felt really good about this, but he's been so freaking efficient, 53% from the field, 50% from deep. And he's been playing 36 minutes. And I think that's a big part of this, that why I like Trey is he's going to continue to play. He's such a young player. And this team is likely to make the play-in, by the way. In fact, they're like a game and a half out of the playoffs right now as an 8 seed, despite being like the 4th worst team in the league for the last 3 months record. I swear to God, they have like the 4th worst record of the league since January, and they're still at 500 because the West does not want to win. Nobody wants to win this conference. And so they're still around and they have plenty to play for. And he's going to get his minutes even when they tank. The last time they just played Portland, he had those 41 points that I mentioned, and that was in 30 minutes, Nate. 9 for 14 from deep, even when he's not getting these minutes, or even when he's not getting the ball. And that game was a blowout. He's still just dropping it because they've all recognized, and BI said it, CJ said it the other day, CJ McCollum, this is the best 3-point shooter on our team. This is the best 3-point shooter we've had in a while on this Pelicans team. So it's very, very helpful, and they're going to keep looking for him. And in Portland, that's what they do. They allow 3-pointers, especially in their last 7, full-blown tank. You can get threes at whatever rate you want. They're giving up the 3rd most. And they're allowing 122 points a game. They're allowing the 2nd most free throw attempts. You can get rebounds against them. They allow the 3rd most. They allow the 3rd most assists. They're just not trying. And they're not good at defense. They were a decent at D at some point earlier in the season for a bit. Jeremy Grant also not playing anymore at this point. We just obviously need to see the injury report for this Blazers team, but they've been sitting everybody. So why would they start playing them against a Pellies team?
Yeah, I mean, I was burned by this Trey Murphy recency bias, I think a week or two ago. But, and he has some troubling road home splits, but this is not a situation that's normal, right? This is when you're facing a team it's not that they're not trying, but that it's just trotting out a bunch of rookies, essentially. And so, how much is Brandon Ingram going to be stealing usage? Exactly what you're saying. They might look for Murphy a little bit more, especially coming off 10 for 12 from deep. He's going to have confidence. He's going to be gunning. I would take the plus odds on the threes or the points, but I think really what I'm looking at is the Blazers being shorthanded and exploiting their guys that are suddenly going to be getting huge minutes. Drew Eubanks is actually the guy I would look at here once his props are up, because Trenton Watford got hurt last night as well. No Jeremy Grant, as you mentioned. Nurk, we don't know what's been up with him for a while, but I think Eubanks is just going to get a ton of minutes and probably only be at 14 PRA, and he's going to pile up stats if he gets enough minutes. So talking again about a game video here, it's Zach LaVine, and basically exploiting the fact that Paul George is out, and Paul George made him struggle the last time these teams met in Chicago in late January. He had 18 points. He had 6 turnovers. He's been on a heater since. In fact, 10 non-conference games since then. He's averaging 30 a game, hitting 3 threes at 42%. He's topped 26 points in 5 of his last 6, which is where his prop is. Still had 25 points despite going 7 for 22 against Sacramento. So he's become the number one option to a degree. You see DeRozan diming up more, looking for LaVine, and DeRozan is probably going to be matching up with Kawhi tonight versus LaVine, who's playing not against Paul George, playing against, I guess, Eric Gordon to start. That's who the Clippers started last game, which is food, certainly, when you're 10 years younger than the man. But he's just been a main reason for success. His last 6 roadies here that the Bulls have won all of them, 33 points a game, 3.7 threes at 49%. So to see his prop at 2.5 threes is definitely where I would go before the points. I mean, a high percentage of his looks come from 3 anyway, and he's just hitting right now, especially when you think about this matchup. You talk about Trey Murphy, 10 for 12 last night. Pelicans, 21 for 42 from 3 against this Paul George-less Clippers team, which gives up 13 threes a game without Paul George. So I think they're just going to be a lot weaker on the perimeter without him.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've been talking about him doing his thing and really carrying this offense, honestly, in the last, let's say, couple of weeks as they've been, winning games, and he's been on that heater. So I think you continue to feel good about it against the Clips, who I don't even know what their identity is. I mean, they've been good on defense at times, but this is not a really good situation for them, as we like the Bulls to actually be able to probably win that game. I might hit that money line here in a little bit. Let's finish things off here with Jaden Hardy, Nate, and talk about the young Mav, as he's going to be playing without Luka tonight. And at the very best, a hobbled Kyrie will be out there, if he's out there at all. You can get over 17.5 points, rebounds, and assists combined for Hardy. -110 is the best place to find that right now on BetMGM if you have an account there. But yeah, without Luka, that's where we start with this one. His last 5 without Luka Doncic, 19 points per game. That is above that 17.5 PRA for Mr. Hardy. About 4 boards and 3 assists, and about a 32% usage rate because he's scoring a lot. I mean, honestly, he was scoring a lot when Luka was out there, because there was times where he was just sort of the best option in a one-on-one scenario while Luka was kind of diming up and coming back from injury. But even those numbers I just mentioned include a bad game where he got benched after 6 minutes versus the Lakers, and he still is able to get over that 19 points a game in his last 5. Kyrie, like we said, he's still dealing with a foot injury, and we don't really know what we're getting for him. And we saw him defer to Hardy a couple times when the two of them played together, and they needed buckets, but Kyrie, his foot just wasn't quite there. And in Kyrie's last 2 games without Luka, I mean, he's doing just fine as well. But at the same time, like, if you're going to go for a higher prop at this point with Kyrie, I just don't feel quite as good about what the performance that he's able to bring, despite the fact that he's been really good on offense without Luka, in the last week or two, as they've both been trying to come back from injury, and Kyrie came back a little bit earlier. So maybe you like a Kyrie prop if Luka sits as well, but I think Hardy's low totals here. The PRA I like as well, just because like I think he's going to get close to 15, 16 points at least in this game, and then you've got you're getting way over with a couple boards or a couple assists at that point, which should be easy enough to come by. Like you said, 32% usage for dude, and should be getting close to like 35 minutes tonight.
Yeah, I mean, Luka is out, suspended for sure, and I started to look at Kyrie because of that at 28.5 points, but I think this foot issue is actually really troubling. Granted, Charlotte has been a top 3 defense since the All-Star break for some reason, but to only score 18 twice against Charlotte in games that the Mavs absolutely need, it shows me Kyrie is not there in terms of just being able to drop 30 at will. So that means he's going to need help from Hardy. I mean, the one thing is the concern that Jason Kidd yanked him after 6 minutes in that Lakers game, but that's when Kyrie had it cooking. And when he doesn't, I don't know if he really has that option. You do worry that a rookie can make one defensive mistake and then just sit the rest of the game, but I don't think that's really the case here in Indy when he's playing against other rookies that they might not have Halliburton. Like, it's going to be a bit more of a freewheeling game where I think you get the points. So I look at Kyrie, but yeah, 28.5 is too high. I would rather attack the low prop with Hardy.
Yeah, and a little Rick Carlisle revenge game here in Indy. No, but this Indy D is awful. It's even worse than Charlotte, who has not been bad at home by any means on defense, weirdly enough. Honestly, they haven't been that bad on defense everywhere, unless they're just hemorrhaging points to centers. But other than that, I think that Jaden Hardy should have some opportunity to keep getting burned, and like it's not going to be a blowout scenario tonight for these Mavs, who just lost to the Hornets again and look like one of the worst teams in the league. So I don't know how you sit Hardy, even if he makes a defensive mistake. Like that's your best offensive player right now, alongside Christian Wood. I mean, and Kyrie, obviously, but after those two guys. So that is all the time we have for you in this one. Make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along with us. We'll be back tomorrow with another couple of game videos and those player props. So until we see you next, happy betting.